Hi everyone, Jo Bailey, clinical psychologist. Today we're diving into one of Australia's most bizarre cases, and Australia does seem to have a few. This one's the bizarre criminal case of Erin Patterson, dubbed the Beef Wellington Killer, or as I call her, the Mushroom Murderer. It's a case that's equal parts Agatha Christie and Gordon Ramsay. For those unfamiliar with the case, Erin Patterson is accused of serving a mushroom-laced beef Wellington lunch in July last year. It led to the deaths of 3 family members on her ex-husband's side and left another fighting for his life. Gail and Don Patterson, these were her in-laws or her ex-husband's parents, both died in hospital, along with Heather Wilkinson. This was the ex's aunt. Helen's husband, or the uncle, Ian Wilkinson, a Korumburra pastor, was in critical condition. He was in hospital for some time, but fortunately he later recovered, and I believe he underwent a liver transplant to survive. But let's move away from the sad elements of this case, because there's some really wacky things that are going on with Erin. This story is a dish served with so many red flags that it's really hard not to be cynical. And if you are like me, it's really hard to believe in coincidences, especially in cases like this. Erin pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of murder and 5 counts of attempted murder, including allegations of trying to poison her ex-husband Simon multiple times in the past. Simon had just mysteriously fallen gravely ill about a year earlier, and he ended up in intensive care for about 3 weeks. It nearly took his life, and the dots weren't connected then, or not until the luncheon that actually did take the lives of 3 of his family members. And what's even weirder is Simon was meant to be at that luncheon, but conveniently, coincidentally, he just happened to cancel at the last minute. And another red flag is that Erin and Simon's 2 children were, first of all, I heard that they weren't at the house, but then it later came out, she must have lied to police, I don't know, but it was confirmed that indeed they were at the house for the luncheon, but conveniently just didn't happen to eat the beef Wellington. But then, in more coincidental and mysterious testimony, Erin later said they went to the movies and they ate the children. They didn't eat the children. The children ate the beef Wellington or the leftovers the next day, but they didn't fall sick. Look, it's all just so weird, and her story has changed a little bit throughout. Coincidental? Well, stranger things have happened, and I often say the truth is stranger than fiction. Her weapon of choice is pretty unusual as well, more akin to those fictional Agatha Christie whodunit stories. The weapon, of course, being the infamous, what's it called? Amanita phalloides, the death cap mushroom. And this isn't the average mushroom. Think of it as the John Wick of fungi, lethal, effective, and unforgiving. Erin was also an experienced mushroom forager, so she knew her mushies. She knew what she was doing. She would often go picking mushrooms for cooking, so surely she would know what the death cap mushroom was, especially when this is a known species around this area and there are signs warning of it. And another red flag, Erin would dry her mushies out in a food dehydrator, which she just happened to secretly dispose of after the luncheon at a local tip. Forensic teams located the item, and it is being used as part of her ongoing prosecution case, which should be heard, I think it is, in April next year. And despite all this, Erin continues to plead her innocence. From the moment this story broke, Erin's behaviour was overt. It was bizarre, and it had everyone guessing whether she did this or whether she was just an innocent party and accidentally picked the wrong mushrooms. Again, allegedly. Her body language and her mannerisms in an earlier interview soon after the luncheon, well, that sealed the deal for me. And when you see this interview, you might also draw the same conclusions. I'm going to have a look at it, and we'll talk through some of the strange behaviours that I noticed when I watched this the first time.
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don. Don is still in hospital, the loss of Ian and Heather.
She says Don is still in hospital. Don is deceased at this point. She says this a few times throughout this interview. So keep in mind, Don is deceased. Ian is the one fighting for his life. You would think she would get that right.
And Gail, they were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like... Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me.
Interesting there. Ian and Heather were, past tense, Ian is deceased. There is a helicopter going over in the audio. It's not very clear. But you'll notice she's touching her face a lot. She's looking at her hands as though she's crying, but there are no tears. There's no respiration or things that are suggesting this is genuine so far.
Yeah, I'm so devastated about what's happened.
There, she just touches her eye and looks at her hand for some imaginary tears, or is she checking for if her mascara doesn't look like she's wearing makeup? Maybe she is, but that's unusual. I don't know why she's doing that. Maybe she's trying to convince herself that she's crying, or convince the camera and us watching that she's crying.
Can you tell us?
And the loss to the community, and to the families, and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened.
The interviewer says, "Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?" And she immediately responds, "What I can tell you is," and then you see a pause and her head shakes. So whatever she went to say, it appears she stopped herself and she's thought, I can't say that, and then she recorrects and says, "What I can tell you is I can't fathom this." So she goes from an emotional response up to a cognitive one. And look, my best guess is, looking at her body language and how very still and things she's, I don't think she is, and I don't mean it disrespectfully, I don't think she is the smartest woman. So in this instance, what she's done is the emotional response comes on very quickly. It is much faster than the cognitive brain. The cognitive brain presumably is smarter, but you see that intercept there, the emotion, and then, no, I can't say that. I can't fathom what has happened.
I just can't fathom what has happened. Ian and Heather have lost their lives.
Ian and Heather have not lost their lives. Ian is still alive.
And Gail has lost her life, and Don is still in hospital, and I pray that he pulls through.
Don is not fighting for his life. Look, this, if you get that wrong once, maybe, but it's multiple times. Yeah, I find that odd.
Because my children love him.
And you must be pretty shaken up by this as well.
I'm devastated. I love them. I can't believe that this is...
Bit of a looking up at the sky. I'm not sure how to interpret that. I mean, it could be exasperation. Sometimes when I'm exasperated, I look up. It's like the mind trying to think of what to say, what to do next. But, I mean, she could be looking up to the deceased people. I don't know if she has religious belief. I'm not sure what that is, but you can see she's very stilted. It's just there's some unusual behaviours here. Let's keep going.
It's happened, and I'm so sorry that they have lost their lives.
I'm so sorry. And then you can hear the cogs in her mind that they have lost their lives. She's not sorry. It's not anything she's done. She said earlier that, which I probably should have stopped, that she said, "They've never done anything wrong. They've never hurt me." It's an unusual thing to say. It's almost like a defense. Well, it's not something you would say in this moment of despair and overwhelming grief. You wouldn't say they've done nothing wrong to me. It's unusual.
How are you?
I just can't believe it. Just can't believe it.
Can you tell us where the mushrooms came?
She does it again, wipes her eyes, looks at her imaginary tears, and she sort of shakes it off, and she walks away. She can't do this any longer, so now she's trying to get away. I'm not sure where she goes here. Let's have a look. Moving away from the reporters. She's gone to the passenger side. In Australia, we drive on the right-hand side. She's opening, closing doors. She's walking around. Doesn't really achieved anything there. And then does a loop.
I just ask you
Get some
to leave me
groceries.
alone now, please.
Police say you're a suspect. Do you have anything to say about
Yes,
that?
I say I didn't do anything. I love them. And I'm devastated that they're gone. And I hope with every fibre of my being that Don pulls through. That's
Where
what I
did the
have to
mushrooms
say.
come from? Were they picked by you, or where did they come from, Erin? Can you tell us?
And she doesn't answer the question about where the mushrooms came from there. You see no respiration that you would usually hear, like that deep sighing, that deep breathing, gasping for air when one is really distraught. You don't really hear her voice fracturing. There's nothing there to suggest it's real. There's a bit of emotion that might be genuine at the end, but it could be because of the pressure and the questioning around her being a suspect. But look, if I look at that and I'm to conclude whether or not I think that is fake, put on emotion, yes, I certainly do. So, after looking at all of that and with consideration to the many red flags, her ex-husband almost dying in a similar experience, Erin passing the buck to a local Asian grocery store that she later claimed sold her the mushrooms, they didn't, saying that the children were at the house, they weren't at the house, they were at the movies, they ate the Beef Wellington the next day but they didn't get sick, the disappearing food dehydrator, the many lies and the backtracking that she's done with the police investigation. And just the weirdness of this woman. And yes, I know, weirdness is not a crime, otherwise we would all be in jail. But seriously, all these things combined, and the body language analysis and my best professional opinion, I have to say that there is foul play here. I'm curious to see what happens with her case, but I will be very surprised if it pans out anything other than guilty. I guess we'll stay tuned and watch. Till next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and have a happy, peaceful day. Bye for now.